Another ridiculous news day here. I mean, can't get a break. All right, get up in the morning, oh, this and that and this and that. Okay, I'm going to sort it out. We got a lot of stuff to tell you about. And I always recommend you watch and listening to the No Spin News with a pen and paper. Therefore, you don't have to waste a lot of time on nitwits that are telling you stuff that isn't true, because we back everything we say up, which should be refreshing, and I think it is for everyone. Iran's the subject of the Talking Points memo once again. You can't get away from it because it affects every American and mostly every person around the world. So today, President Trump ordered a postpone of draconian action against the Iranian oil fields. He's going to blow them all up. And he's not going to do that for 5 days, he says, because they had a call yesterday, they being the United States. Witkoff is the main negotiator, and somebody in Iran. We don't know who, okay? Nobody knows who's in charge. The mullah's kid who got elected, nobody's seen him. So somebody's talking, but we don't know. But Trump says it was a very good call. They're making a lot of progress. So I'm going to back away for 5 days, see if we can get a deal, which is what Trump wanted from the very beginning, as I have reported. And how do I know that? Because I was on the phone with the man for half an hour talking about the negotiation. This was before there was military action. Okay. So again, the conversation between Iran and Witkoff, and they're, it's by phone. And there are other people in the room with Witkoff, of course, took place yesterday, Sunday, March 22nd. That happened. Iran says it didn't happen. Okay. What do you expect them to say? They're not going to admit weakness. They're not going to say they came to the USA wanting a deal. Ever. All right. 2 weeks ago, here's what I predicted. Go. So the Iranians obviously are getting the hell kicked out of them, and this is a threat to them. And then they wouldn't be in power if they didn't kill 30,000 of their own countrymen. Okay.
No question.
And so they'll probably open talks, and then Trump will impose what he wants. Now, whether Iran accepts that or not, I think they will, because they really don't have much of a choice now. The cliche is bombing them back to the Stone Age. That's what they're doing. But one thing changed, the difficulty in the Strait of Hormuz, which is strangling some oil flow out to the rest of the world, most importantly to China. China's a big part of this, okay, but it gets no publicity. But China gets an enormous amount of oil from Iran. In fact, 80% of all the oil Iran sells goes to China. Just keep that in mind. Now, a deal is going to look something like this. The mullahs are not going to be removed from power. All right? So regime change, it's already changed because the Israelis killed all the first leadership. So we're on the second and third tier now. But they'll remain. Okay, that's number one. Number two, Western weapons inspectors, nuclear people, probably from the UN, but there's got to be some EU people in there, will be admitted to make sure that the Iranians are not enriching uranium. Iranians are going to back away from that. They're going to say, all right, we won't do it now, which is what this whole thing's all about. All right? They have to, because Trump's not going to sign any deal that doesn't include that. Ballistic missiles, they only have like 8 of them left, so Iran doesn't, that's not a big factor, but they'll say we're not going to make any more, we're going to destroy the ones we have, or whatever they'll say. But, and I'm not naive, Iran will cheat on all this, but you got to get the agreement first. Okay, and then in return, the Trump administration will lighten up some of the sanctions, economic sanctions against Iran. They'll be able to take their oil and sell it to China and that kind of a thing. That's probably the way it's going to shake down. Now, how long will that take? I can't see it going more than 2 more weeks, because every day there's another attack on Iran's infrastructure. And if they are disrespectful or if they lie about this pause, Trump will come back with more ferocity against them. And, every day it's going to take Iran that much longer to rebuild whatever infrastructure they're going to have left. Okay. So these are my predictions of what's going to happen. Now, the war is going to cost the American taxpayer about $200 billion. A lot of money. All right? And Europe's not going to help. They won't even give us a dime. All right? Israel doesn't have any money. They're totally dependent on the USA. How is the Trump administration going to make that back? I don't know. But it'll probably be through some kind of oil deals. This is the only way I can see that we're going to get back anything out of this whole campaign against Iran. So that, is significant. Now, the Department of War, Haig said, we got $1 trillion. Look, let's not do that. We are spending ourselves into oblivion in this country, $39 trillion debt. We need to tighten this up. And then individually, I do expect oil prices to come down pretty significantly, pretty fast. Why? Because if they don't, the Trump administration, Department of Energy, is going to investigate the American oil companies. And they don't want that. They don't want to be investigated because they're gouging us. So I expect that to come down. Is it enough to keep the USA out of a recession? I don't know. I don't know. Is it enough for the Republicans to keep the midterms? Hard to say. All right, that's the memo. Now, most Americans are getting their information from the media, which is always now dangerous. It didn't used to be, but now it is. Because the media is not going to tell you the truth. I'm talking generally. They won't. New CBS poll, 3,335 U.S. adults. That doesn't mean these people know anything. They're not registered voters. They're not likely voters, just adults. That means they just sweep them in. We don't know anything, whatever. First question, what is your impression of the military conflict with Iran? Going well, 43%. Somewhat or very badly, 57%. That is media driven. Okay. Second question, do you think Americans would be willing or not willing to pay more for gas during the U.S. military conflict with Iran? Willing 33, not willing 67. That's a frightening number. So if you'd rather have Iran in possession of a nuclear weapon than pay a little bit more for your gasoline, I don't know what to tell you. Okay. Now, the media itself is divided on this. Conservative media backs Trump. Okay? Liberal media, some of the not progressives understand the big picture. Okay? The progressives totally against it. They hate Trump people. Trump's worse than the mullahs in their eyes. All right? Now, here is the con. So the network news and the cables, MS and CNN, only book guests that hate Trump, with a few exceptions. They're trying to wise up a little. They got to get maybe 1 or 2. But they're outnumbered like 20-1. And they know when they book a hate Trump guest what the guest is going to say. Roll the tape.
President Trump thought he could get a better deal than the Obama administration did. He failed to get that better deal. And he went off and launched a war without planning, without being ready for even some of the most basic things.
This is the second time this century that the United States has made a drastically bad mistake in terms of engaging in conflict in the Middle East. The first one was in 2003 when we invaded Iraq. And that ushered in then years and years of chaos and violence and terrorism.
I just came from a 2-hour closed-door classified briefing on the war. It just confirmed to me it's totally incoherent. We are not going to be able to achieve any of our stated objectives.
Okay, so all three of those men, they hate Trump. They never say anything good about him, ever, or would they? In a million years. Why bother having them on? Why bother? Because the network news and 2 out of the 3 main cables are invested in ruining Trump. That's why. All right, joining us now from Florida is our media go-to guy, Bernie Goldberg, who is the purveyor of BernardGoldberg.com, which has a sensational special we'll tell you about at the end of the interview. So you go there and absorb Bernie's wisdom, okay? Now, Bernie has so much wisdom that you have to absorb it kind of gradually, or you'll be overwhelmed by the wisdom. All right, where am I going wrong here, Goldberg?
And I want to make a comment about your rarely happening wisdom. That's a joke. You nailed it, how they portray negative news. They bring people on who say all these negative things, and then they say, well, it's not us.
Right.
It's just the people who are bringing on.
Yeah,
anyway, I wrote a column on the website that you mentioned, BernardGoldberg.com. This is what I said. If Democrats were ventriloquists, journalists would be the little dummies sitting on their laps. So if Democrats are against the war, and they are, liberal journalists will also be against the war. Now, you and I, Bill, come from a hard news background, so I know you'll agree with this. Journalists should not be cheerleaders for this or any other war. They should ask hard questions. They should be skeptical of what the government tells them. But they've crossed a very bright line with their partisanship. Give me just 30 seconds to read a very brief passage from an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, not by a MAGA Republican wearing a red hat, but by Mark Penn, who was an advisor to Bill and Hillary Clinton, and Andrew Stein, who was the former New York City Council president, obviously a Democrat. Very short passage. Journalists have a right and a duty to report bad news and to question Pollyanna-ish reports from the US government. But many seem to be going beyond that and rooting for America to fail. Let that sink in. Very short ending. What seems to be driving the coverage is repertorial partisanship and the Democrats' determination to oppose this president no matter what he does. Bingo, that's what it's all about. Democrats want to oppose him no matter what he does, so their media allies do the same thing.
And I think you got to give the New York Times credit for running that op-ed, but it's outnumbered.
Wall Street Journal.
It was a Wall Street Journal. Yeah, I read the op-ed. I just didn't remember the source of it. Okay, and all of that is true across the board. But here's the real frightening part, because I did use that word in introducing the CBS poll, that a lot of Americans, maybe most of us, don't pay attention. They don't know really what's happening. They just hear things. And when the media is overwhelmingly against a president, they're going to just hear things that aren't true, that are slanted, whatever it may be, and then make their opinion based on the things they are hearing. I'm seeing more and more of that. How about you?
No, I think you're right. You're on a roll today, Bill. I think you're right about that too. Let's use this as an example. liberal Democrats and their allies in the media are trashing Donald Trump. This is one of their big reasons for their opposition to the war, because there was no imminent threat, they say. But for argument's sake, and only for argument's sake, let's say they're right. There was no imminent threat. Would it be better if he had waited until there was an imminent threat? Because if he waited until there was an imminent threat, Iran may have had a nuclear device, nuclear bomb, and they could have hit London, Paris, Berlin, Tel Aviv, even New York or Washington, possibly. So, you know what would happen then, Bill? The same media that is trashing Donald Trump for going to war when there was no imminent threat would be trashing him because he waited too long before there was an imminent threat. So heads, they win. Tails, he loses. The system is rigged.
Now, interesting you brought that up, because right after you, I'm going to run a clip of Lindsey Graham where I did an interview on our new long form, which did discuss in very micro detail the imminent threat. Okay. So you have a basically dishonest media here. I don't think there's any question fair-minded people understand that. Do you believe the actual people running these companies, making the calls, are dishonest?
I think they're acting like business people and not news people. I think they know who their audience is, and they say we're going to give them.
But isn't that dishonesty, though? Because they're supposed to be presenting objective news.
Yeah, that's right, Bill. And I'm going to break some bad news to you. There's no tooth fairy, and there's no Santa Claus, and there's no Easter Bunny either. It's, of course, they're dishonest. They're doing this for business. They don't call it the news business for nothing. It's a business, and they should be reporting the truth without partisanship. But they're desperately trying to stay in business in this new media landscape by telling the audience precisely what they think the audience wants to hear.
Do you believe
that's corrupt, by the way?
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. Do you believe that the corruption that began in 2016, when Trump came on the stage and started to succeed, has destroyed the television news industry in particular, or it was inevitable with social media and all? It was inevitable they were going to decline. But
it might have been inevitable, but they're getting worse and worse and worse. I mean, if Joe Biden or Barack Obama had launched this war, do you think the coverage would be the same?
Of course not. And the infantile questions, how long is the war going to... Do you get as angry as I do? I'm sitting there, how long is it? Well, how would anybody know that?
No, that you're absolutely... I don't know what you've been drinking, but you're absolutely right about that too. Here's the thing. If this same journalistic bunch were covering D-Day on January 6, 1944, when 2,500 Americans and 4,400 Allied troops were killed in one day, they would be calling for the impeachment of Franklin Roosevelt, and they would try to get Dwight Eisenhower thrown into prison. I mean, you can't count any American death in uniform, any American in uniform who dies. It's a tragedy, not just for their families, but for all of us. But they count every single one as if, you see what's happening, and this war is not going to go on. It's not going to end tomorrow. When is it going to end? These are questions without answers, and they know what they're doing, and they're doing it to turn their audience, to appeal to their audience who already doesn't like it because of what their audience is hearing from other news people. It's a vicious circle.
Yeah, but with one goal, get Trump.
That's the beginning, the middle, and the end.
All right, tell me about BernardGoldberg.com March Madness Special. What do you got going?
Well, I want to say two things. First of all, it's a half price sale off of already very low prices. But here's the thing, Bill. We're a small website and we're trying to stay relevant. And your audience, the people I'm talking to now, and thank you for letting me do it, are important to our survival, to be perfectly honest about it. We need your audience. We like your audience, and we appreciate you for letting me say these things to your audience.
Now you have a half price going forward, and it's a pittance. And I'm saying that not in a derogatory way, but
I know.
If you want to add to your frame of reference, which really is what this is all about. I mean, when you have a colossus corporate media that's being blatantly dishonest across the board, and you can't discount the right-wing networks either, because they're feeding the same kind of
absolutely
quote unquote information, but it's tailored to people who want to believe a certain thing. So the only hope is us. We're the only hope.
That's what I was about to say. If somebody wants their views given back to them 100% of the time, don't waste your time coming over to BernardGoldberg.com. I can't do that. Bill and I have been hard news reporters for many years. That's our foundation. That's our basis. We give opinions, but they're based on fairness. At least I hope they are. In my case, they are, and in Bill's case, they are. And you'll agree with us a lot of times. You won't agree with us, or you won't agree with me all of the time. That's the way I do it. I try to give you my honest opinion, but it's only an opinion.
But that's healthy. And that's what the founding fathers wanted, that kind of vibrant, robust debate with no personal animus or greedy money factor in it.
And let me say this to your audience. You know how Bill knows that? Thomas Jefferson told him that personally.
That's right. I was Goldberg, look, you're older than me. And based upon this shot that's going all over the world now, people can see that with their own eyes. All right, BernardGoldberg.com. March Madness. Check it out. Appreciate it, Bernie.
Thank you, Bill. I need your help.
Final thought of the day. San Francisco, woman named Mary Fong Lau, 80 years old, okay, doing 75 and a 25, kills entire family, okay, 4 people, 3-month-old baby, 1-year-old, gets no punishment in San Francisco to speak of, probation, that kind of thing. San Francisco will not enforce the law. They will not. So on Thursday of this week, okay, 3 days from now, News Nation, 9 p.m., I do a special, The Collapse of San Francisco. Roll it. So this is the Tenderloin District of San Francisco, one of the worst places in the United States of America. The reason it's so bad is because there's no law enforcement at all here. There's violence, drugs everywhere. They call this stretch of the Tenderloin Cartel Alley. Now, I'm reporting with a mixture of anger and sadness. It should not be happening in the United States, all right? And it's happening because of one major reason. People don't care about these people. They don't care, all right? So every indignation you could possibly imagine happens right out here in full view. All right, so again, News Nation, Thursday, this coming, 9 p.m., The Collapse of San Francisco. And that is it for us tonight. Thank you for watching and listening to the No Spin News. See you tomorrow. And I have a frog in my throat from the Potomac River. That frog just jumped on me, and I'll get through it. So, big news nation, CW Network and Sirius Radio live show tonight. And it starts at 8 Eastern Time. 3 Americans, Cuomo, Stephen A. Smith, O'Reilly. We have a big guest lineup. Tom Homan, Homeland Security guy. We got Manchin, former senator from West Virginia. We got a whole bunch of others. And it's going to fly. And the reason that I put together the 3 American concept was because when I get together with Cuomo and Stephen A., they make me look smart. So that's why I did it. Anyway, tomorrow I'm going to show you highlights, but I want you to watch it if you can tonight. It's again 8 Eastern Time. And at 9 Eastern Time, CNN is doing a town hall with the communists, Bernie Sanders, and AOC. So I look at this and I go, why? Why? It's going to be the oligarchy, the billionaires. Why? So I'm up against them tonight, and we'll win. But I'm going to CNN. Why would you bother with this? I could see putting me on with Bernie Sanders. Now, that'd be fun. But, and the CNN moderator is going to sit there and just let them say whatever they want. You know that. All right. Talking points memo. Let's get to reality. Today is a Charlie Kirk Medal of Freedom ceremony yesterday. So I was there as a reporter. I told you I was going to be there. I was not a participant. Okay. The difference is the participants were sitting up front and they were there in an emotional capacity. I was not. I was there in a repertorial capacity. I was in the back. And some very interesting things happened. We'll tell you about some of them at the end of the program. But I was reporting on what was taking place because it was so unique. Medal of Freedom is not given out very much. And this terrible assassination of Mr. Kirk startled the whole country. And I think that President Trump is very compassionate to honor Mr. Kirk, even if you don't agree with him. Okay, and I don't agree with everything that Charlie Kirk said. Nobody did. But to honor him on his birthday, in front of his wife and family members, and Trump had to come back from Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, in a very strenuous flight to do that. He could have put this off to Friday, but he wanted to do it on his birthday. I just thought that was noble. I mean, it's just me, I guess. We're in the Rose Garden. It's brand new. It's nice. Okay. What I like was that all the presidential portraits are up. Even the guys that Trump doesn't like on the side when you walk down to the Oval Office. And I like it. I think that's a good honor for the country, good tradition. Okay, so the ceremony ran a little bit more than an hour. And, as Mr. Trump does, he bloviated for a good time. Here's one of the highlights. Go.
As I said, on the day that he was assassinated, Charlie Kirk was a martyr for truth and for freedom. And from Socrates to think, and to St. Peter, from Abraham Lincoln to Martin Luther King, those who change history the most, and he really did, have always risked their lives for causes they were put on earth to defend. He was put on earth to do exactly what he was doing. He didn't want to waste time.
Okay. Erica Kirk, the widow, was extremely eloquent. Woman is a gift. She's going to carry on Mr. Kirk's legacy. And Turning Point USA is now being run by her. So her speech was very, very emotional. Roll it.
But that never stopped me from telling him. I told him every single year, I said, baby, I love your birthday. I said, because it's the day that God knew the world couldn't go another day without you. And so the rhythm of our usual birthday celebration for him was mint ice cream, mint chocolate chip ice cream. He only had it twice a year, on his birthday and 4th of July. It's just, and then after that, it was back to work as usual. But last year, his one birthday wish was to see the Oregon Ducks play the Ohio State. And they won. Oregon won that night. And it was by far one of the most memorable nights of his birthday experience of his life until today. And so, honestly, President Trump, I have spent 7.5 years trying to find the perfect birthday gift for Charlie. And it's so difficult. And those of you that have spouses or loved ones, you know how difficult it is sometimes to buy a gift for someone that you love, because he wasn't a materialistic man, so that also did not help. But now I can say with confidence, Mr. President, that you have given him the best birthday gift he could ever have.
So very heartfelt. The crowd was all Republican, no Democratic politicians, a bunch of Republican congresspeople and senators. Pundits for Fox News primarily. There wasn't any counter media or any kind of, the Democrats stayed away, just so you know. The press was respectful there, and the coverage of it was respectful, except for MS Now. They just ignored it totally. And look, you know what that is. For me to bash that operation at this point, it's ridiculous. Everybody knows what it is, and they ignored it and all of that. Now, I have an extensive analysis about this Cardinal Dolan Ben Jealous controversy involving Charlie Kirk on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Bill O'Reilly. And the reason I'm not doing it on the No Spin News is I need 12 minutes to put the context, because it's very complicated. Ben Jealous, former head of the NAACP, attacked Timothy Cardinal Dolan of New York City after the Cardinal said nice things about Charlie Kirk. So Jealous thinks Kirk is a racist and all that. To get into that kind of a volatile situation, I had to very precise, research, number one, which I have. And then I had to have sound bites to illustrate what actually happened. And we're talking about the death of an illegal migrant, who was killed by ICE. We're talking about affirmative action and former First Lady Michelle Obama and others, serious. So I didn't want to put it into a mix. I wanted to stand alone. I'm sorry if it's an inconvenience, but our YouTube channel is free. So all you got to do is go there. Again, it's youtube.com/Bill O'Reilly. All right. And become a subscriber. It costs you nothing. And we do 2 or 3 of these a week. But I'm taking this very, very seriously. So that's why I did it that way. And that's the memo. Okay, Gaza update. Now, this is a very interesting story. So the terrorists on the street of Gaza did not want this deal. All right, it was the higher-ups who are not getting the money and the arms they used to get from Iran anymore that made the deal with President Trump and Netanyahu of Israel. In response, after the hostages were released, the terrorists in Gaza began executing Palestinians, their own people, shooting them dead. All right? Because these are people who wanted the deal, who encouraged the deal. This sent a message to all people in Gaza and around the Middle East that you are going to be killed if you favor any kind of détente. These Hamas people, you are going to have to kill them. Trump knows it. And then people go, oh, why'd you make a deal? And you knew it. It was worth to get the 20 people out. And the hostage bodies, 8 bodies have been released. There's all controversy about that. I understand. I'm following it. I never thought for a second that the Hamas terrorists, the trigger men, would stop anything because they're crazy people. All right, they are. But to kill their own, to send a message, it's pretty gruesome. And they keep doing that. This thing is going to escalate again, but I'm praying it doesn't. Netanyahu, demanding that the whole deal be fulfilled, which is part of that deal is Hamas gives up its weapons. It'll never give up its weapons, ever. They'll say they did, and they'll hide them somewhere. You know what the game is. The one good thing is that 600 aid trucks, food trucks, are now in Gaza, I understand. All right, and they rolled through, the Israelis let them through. And whether it's the same thing where the Hamas people steal all the aid, which is what they've done in the past, I don't know. We got to get people over there. We're watching it firmly. So anyway, that's where we are on Gaza. Back home, LA County, largest county in the USA. So they have 3 million immigrants in Los Angeles County. 3 million. Big number, obviously. Many of them are undocumented. So the County Board of Supervisors votes 4-1 that they are going to declare a state of emergency, and they are going to, quote, proclamation gives the county the power to assist residents they say have been impacted financially by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE action. Okay, so they're going to give people money. Undocumented people. LA County, I don't know how much money they have. LA City is broke, but they're going to give people money and they're going to, shield them. It's a sanctuary place. And, but this is what you need to understand. And this is not just LA. The progressive wing doesn't want any immigration enforcement. They were behind the open border that Biden instituted for 4 years. The 15 million undocumented aliens who came in under that, all right, the progressives, that's what they wanted. And they don't want any immigration enforcement, none. So if you arrest even a heinous criminal, if you ICE agent, they oppose it. They don't want anybody searching for anybody. Need to understand that is the mentality here. Now they hide behind, nonviolent people are being rounded up. That is true. It is absolutely true. Because ICE agents can't adjudicate stuff on the street. How could they possibly do that? What they're looking for is people without credentials. They take them in, all right? They put them in a holding center, and then their cases are looked at. That's why people get rounded up who aren't criminals, migrants, and they have families and they're established because the ICE agents they don't have the power on the street to say who's a criminal, who isn't. They got to take them in. Well, the sanctuary places, the progressive places, they don't want any of that. That's essential for you to understand about this controversy. So in Chicago, there was another ICE raid to find undocumented people, and there was a car accident. Now, the ICE people say that the migrants involved used the car to batter the ICE people. This is what happens a lot. And there was a big kerfuffle, as they say. The federal vehicle was rammed, and then protesters magically appeared, more than 100 of them, to bother ICE. And then ICE started to fire tear gas into the crowd. Now, this helps President Trump. So the protesters think that they're helping the migrants. They're not. They're helping President Trump because the more disorder the president can show the Supreme Court about enforcement of a valid federal law, the more the federal court is going, yeah, use the National Guard. You got to stop it. Can't have anarchy. That's the real irony. These progressives aren't smart enough to know what they're doing is hurting their own cause. So that happened in Chicago, and we expect more of the same. Now, if you don't believe me, there is a segment of progressive thought in Chicago that doesn't even want to stop the murders in the poor neighborhoods. Roll the tape.
There's not one gun shop in the city of Chicago, not one gun range in the city of Chicago. There's no African Americans that make ammunitions anywhere in the world. Let's stop these guns from coming into our streets. The city council and other people have acted responsibly. And we don't want to see the United States military on United States soil confronting its citizens with military equipment. We have police that can do their job. We just want a more cooperative environment with the president. There are programs that are working, and he needs to be respectful and talk with the local citizens on what they want to do.
That's just BS. Okay, it's BS. The drug gangs are heavily armed. Most of them are African Americans. 80% of the people murdered, 4,000 of them under Pritzker, the governor, are African American. They're dead in the street. And this has been going on for 6-7 years. And this guy comes out and says, oh, no, we have so you don't have any solution at all. You don't care. If I'm the mayor or the governor and I got 4,000 murdered people and the federal government saying, look, I'm going to give you more protection to save the lives, I take it. Right? Don't you? Don't you take it? Not this guy. Representative Jonathan Jackson, congressperson. All right. Drug boats. Another one blown up. Fifth one. And so, as you know, the president declared the drug cartels in Mexico, Venezuela, other countries to be terrorists. And he's waxing them with the U.S. Navy and the Air Force and drones and all of that. Now, the progressives don't like it. Again, you get flooded with narcotics. 100,000 Americans a year die, and you don't want to stop it. However, here, the progressives have a point because the Pentagon, the military, will not tell we the people, including me, your ombudsman, how they're arriving at the conclusion that these are drug boats. All they have to do is say, look, we had information from an informant that this was carrying this kind of cocaine or whatever it was carrying. And we feel it was valid, and that's what we did. Or even more specificity. This boat was part of this gang. We got the information. Boom. They don't do it. Why? Do it. Tell us what you're doing. Most Americans will support it. And then we go to the Pentagon. Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War. So I got a couple of letters, and I know on social media, some MAGA people are going, that's right, Hegseth, right. Let's make all the press agencies that cover the Pentagon sign a paper that they will not report anything that happens in the Pentagon unless they get permission from Pete Hegseth. Are you kidding me? So let me make it real personal. In 1988, I was working for ABC News, and I was given very, very heavyweight assignments. One of them was a Bradley fighting vehicle, which was a big Pentagon expenditure. Remember, the Pentagon spends almost $1 trillion a year discretionary. That means they spend it on whatever they want. Almost $1 trillion. Bradley fighting vehicle, they were spending enormous money on. They were triple billing. There were corrupt people inside the Pentagon triple billing. That means they were paying 3 times as much to build that vehicle as they should have. I put it on the air. I got the story. It was an award winner, one of the most proud stories I've ever done. Didn't get anybody's permission to do it. Pentagon hated it. Hated it. Went after me and everything like that. So I know you have to do independent reporting, particularly when you have $1 trillion of discretionary spending. Haig says doesn't want that. He wants everybody to, nah, you don't do anything unless I sign off on it. No, it's not freedom of press. Now, Trump in the beginning said, I don't really like this. But he's changed now. Roll it.
I find that when it comes to war, and now our great Department of War, we have some great people over there, I think it bothers me to have soldiers and even, high-ranking generals walking around with you guys on their sleeve asking them, because they can make a mistake, and a mistake can be tragic. They can do it innocently, too. They can, and they're not press people. They don't really deal with the press, so they're not really necessarily good at it.
All right, so restrict access then. That's okay with me. If you want to say all questions have to be asked and answered through an apparatus in the Pentagon, okay. I'm fine with that as a reporter. I'm also fine with lie detecting. So if you think your people are leaking national security stuff, put them on a polygraph. As long you have to do that with Pentagon employees, you can't do that with the press. You have no right to do that with the press. But Pentagon employees, you have a right to do that. I polygraph all day if I were Secretary of War. Send a message, you can't be leaking stuff because it could put our forces in danger. But this craziness, no. And it's not going to hold. It's Supreme Court or somebody going to come in and say, you can't do it. Only one agency of all of the agencies, One America, the San Diego outfit, said it's okay with them. Nobody else, Fox News, Newsmax, nope. They all banded together, so we're not doing it. Final thought of the day. So there I am at the Charlie Kirk ceremony yesterday. And Jesse Waters wanders over. And, I'm on very good terms with Waters. And then Glenn Beck wanders over. And then Tucker Carlson wanders over. Hannity wandered over. So we have all of these icons, all these Fox News icons together in one place, all right, in a little semicircle. So I'm going, this will never happen again. So I snap my fingers and I go, all right, you photographers, let's go. Woo. And they took a bunch of pictures. So this picture is zipped out on Instagram. It goes around the world in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I'm getting texts from all over the world. Instant, boom. Antarctica. I mean, it's incredible. The speed and the power of this Instagram and YouTube and all of this stuff. And, everybody, it's a fun picture because, number one, it'll never happen again. You're never going to get those four guys in the same. And the legacy there is people know what the legacy is, and some people don't like it. That's all right. We know we take cheap shots on social media, but so what? It got everybody together. We had a few laughs, and it wasn't a fun occasion. I mean, Charlie Kirk's assassination, even though he's being honored, I mean, it was a little, I wouldn't say it was somber, but it was respectful. But, there was a lot of back and forth and about, ribbing each other. And it was a good-natured thing. It will never happen again. So if you didn't see the picture, it's everywhere. They fly it up, download it, throw darts at it, whatever you want. All right, that is it for us today. I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thank you very much for watching. New column on Sunday. Special tomorrow on the Three Americans right here. And we'll see you again on Monday.